Our scripture lesson can be found in Exodus chapter number 17, beginning with verse number 1. From the wilderness of sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They're almost ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock and water will come out of it so that the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" May God bless the reading and hearing of this word. May we hear in it a word that is to us and is for us on this day. We have a particular challenge in the church. Perhaps not just one, but one in particular that I wish to speak to today, and that is the challenge of inspiring people to keep growing. We have the challenge of inspiring people to hear some voice which urges them to stay in the process of becoming. It's a daunting challenge, really, because the older we get, the more inspiration we need to keep growing. It is as if we have put a lot of energy into becoming like we are, so we are hesitant to embrace the things that might make something new out of us. I always ask the people who want me to change, and well, there are a few, to be patient with me and to understand that I've invested a lot of time and energy into becoming this. So it's work to get out of my ruts. Engaging the process of becoming and engaging that process together is in large part what it means to be church. Now that Easter is a few weeks behind us, we can talk about the lost day of Holy Week. Now, it's not totally lost. There are some traditions that give consideration to it, but most of us Protestant Christians on the lost day of Holy Week were probably spreading mulch or cutting some shrubs. Saturday. It's strange that this day became lost because most of us are Saturday people. And here is what I mean. We talk a lot about the Friday of Holy Week, and though a lot of bad things happen because of what it has come to mean in our understanding of what God is doing in our world and in our own lives, we have called it Good Friday. Much of our theology, many of our hymns, many of our sermons revolve around Friday. We also talk a lot about the Sunday of Holy Week, right? That's sort of the Super Bowl of Sundays for us. Easter. It's a day of light. It is a day of completion. It is a day of ultimate victory of good over evil. Now, thankfully, most of us don't spend most of our lives in a Friday's way of being. We don't spend most of our lives completely lost or wandering around in the darkness of Friday. We also, though, don't spend most of our lives in a Sunday state of being. We haven't arrived yet. We haven't reached a state of completion. Now, if you do meet someone who believes that God has finished with them, if you meet someone who has discovered all the answers and is now just moving about practicing those answers, run. And when I say run, I mean run fast. Kick off your heels and kick off your dress shoes and get some of those PF flyers that used to make me fast when I was a youngster and run. Jesus never showed exasperation with sinners, but was utterly exasperated by those who believed that they had arrived. We like to call ourselves Sunday people, but really, truth be told, what we are is Saturday people. We're somewhere in between what we were and what we are going to become. Our text today takes us directly into that sort of space. And you know the background of this story, likely. God saw the suffering of the Hebrew people and went to a middle-aged man named Moses who had pretty much given up on the dreams of his youth. Life had not gone as he had anticipated that it would. He had imagined himself to be sort of a civil rights activist and a liberator of the people. But in his zeal, he murdered an Egyptian slave driver, and the act of violence got him exiled out of Egypt. And he also lost the trust of the Hebrew people, so we find him on the backside of the desert, is what Scripture calls it, which really isn't so much a geographical place as it is a place where we are when plan A for our lives doesn't work. And God encountered Moses in a burning bush and said to Moses to go to the Hebrew people and to instruct them that God had seen their suffering and was ready to do something about it. And that was the easy part, because then he sent Moses to go to the Pharaoh in the Egyptian palace and to say to him, "Let my people go." Well, it wasn't easy and it wasn't smooth, but it eventually happened, and the people were given their freedom. They were liberated from a Friday way of being. The promise, however, involved more than just the promise of freedom. It also involved the promise of place. God would lead them to a place flowing with milk and honey. God would lead them to the promised land. God would lead them to a Sunday way of being. But the place I want us to consider today is neither the place of bondage in Egypt nor the place of victory in the promised land. The text we read today finds the Hebrew people in an in-between place for 40 years. They were in this in-between place. They lived most of their lives in this in-between place, just as we do. You see, one of the things made clear by those 40 years in the wilderness is that they had developed some level of comfort in Egypt. As terrible as it was, as bad as it was, when they were out there in the wilderness, the people said to Moses on numerous times, "Why did you bring us out here?" And in the text today, they asked Moses, "Why did you bring us out here to die of thirst in the desert?" In the moment was a relevant question. Now, I don't know about you, but I can connect with them, and I think we can connect with them together. Did you know that we are approaching the 10-year anniversary of the culmination of the process in which this faith community became open and affirming?